Welcome, I'm the Deadwood Jedi. This is another Raid Shadow Legends video. I'm trying to get the last of these Demytha builds out while I still have access to the test server. So this is another one I have for you guys. This is the High Mythman build here. It's basically going to involve Maneater, High Khatun, and Demytha. Now, this is probably the most budget of all the builds, the most, affordable speed-wise that you can get. Obviously, it's still going to be fast with Maneater. He's still going at like a 246 speed, but everybody else is like sub 150, like really, really slow. It obviously involves High Khatun's aura, but as always, you can always substitute a different champion in for High Khatun that does the same things that she does, the 15% turn meter boost and a 30% speed buff. If you can get that, Apothecary comes to mind, then you can do it. You just will have to accommodate or account for the aura involved. Now, in general, these speeds are very attainable, as in they're very slow, but they're also kind of specific, especially Demytha. So I'm going to cover that as we go over the champions. Real quick, though, before we get too into it, I want to shout out my patrons for their support. I also want to encourage you guys to go ahead and hit the subscribe, like, and notification bell, just so you know when my next video is out. It's a great way to support the channel. And with all of that said, let's go ahead and look at the champions. Then we'll do the run and talk a little bit about it afterwards. Okay, guys, this is the team. This is the build we're going to be bringing in. Obviously, I'm bringing Draco and Vizier for damage, just so you can see the full potential of this. Also, quick note, all my other videos I've done so far, forgot to book Draco. It was a totally unbooked Draco we were doing 1 key damage with. Just FYI, there's a lot of potential in some of these teams. Moving on from that little mess up of mine, this team's going to involve High Khatun, obviously, Maneater, and Demytha. Now, this does work on Nightmare, though you do need to make a speed adjustment with High Khatun. There are some things you're going to have to be careful of as far as dealing with the spirit affinity. It's very much affinity friendly involving Maneater, but there are some adjustments as far as timing of his skills and then dealing with the first stun in order to make that work. But I'll get to that when we do the run here. Let's take a look at the champions really quick so you have an understanding of how I built them and you can see the crazy low speeds that we're using. Now, we'll start with the fast one. We'll start with Maneater. He's definitely the fastest of the group. He's going 245 speed, right? This is pretty much the minimum that you need. That's what we need to make this work. But outside of that, everything's incredibly, incredibly slow. So I'll start with the epics. I'll start with the necessary champion. So let's begin with High Khatun here. Yeah, that's 118 speed. 118. 119 works. It's obviously going to be dependent on speed sets. And like I said, I will have links to these builds down below in the pinned comment and description of this video. So if you want to see the specific speeds you need, go ahead and click on those links. That's going to tell you the true speed that you need, as well as the speeds that are going to work with the auras and all that other stuff in there. So so we got a 118 speed. It's going to work for High Khatun. We also have obviously Demytha here. Demytha is going at 112 speed. Now, this is the trickiest part, especially on Ultra Nightmare. I haven't fully tested on Nightmare, but I know on Ultra Nightmare, the speed you need is like incredibly specific. I have 2 perception sets on. I need 112 speed with 2 perception sets and no Lure of Steel. I'm sure there are some other combinations that might work. This is the only one I found. So just understand that. It's like that is very, very specific. 112 speed with 2 perception sets. So just understand that. You got to know like the base speed of Demytha. That's going to be affected by the aura from High Khatun, which affects everything. So you got to, it's very specific. It's like somewhere between 12 and a half, like the true speed is like very, very confined. It's like 131.5 to like 131.9 or something like that. It's a very small window. So you have to hit that. You're going to have to be very careful with that, putting this in the calculator. The other 2 champions, obviously, we're going to have Draco in here. He is now booked. He's going at 122 speed. And you can see I stacked him out pretty good. He hits hard. And then the other champion, obviously, is going to be Vizier that we have, if I can find him somewhere here. There he is. He's going at 122 as well. So there is a little bit more range with the DPS champions, but the speeds are kind of tight because they're so slow. They are fairly tight speeds, so you got to make sure that you're hitting those numbers. So that's pretty much it. It's not a full auto team. not by a long shot, so we do have to manual it. So let's go ahead and jump into the run. Okay, as far as going into the run, we do need a little bit of delay with Maneater, 2 turns essentially here. So that A1 is what we're going to just start with there. I have Vizier. Vizier is just doing his A1, so we're going to get all the debuffs up from Draco, and then Vizier is just going to extend for days. That's the goal here. Now, if we're going against Spirit Affinity, we would need to block the debuffs that would happen right here. In this spot, we would use his Unkillable ability from Maneater. Okay. Now, that's not the case here, so I want to hit auto as quick as possible, so I'm not going to use it there. But if we're going in Spirit, you have to use Unkillable at this part right here on his second attack, basically. But we don't need to worry about that. Now, High Khatun is going to go ahead and speed up. Demytha is going to extend right there. And we should be pretty much in sync. Now it's just about getting the skills right. Now, because we're not going in Spirit, this is where I'm going to use the Unkillable ability. It'll just allow me to hit auto sooner. Because I used it early, because if I was going in Spirit, I would use it a turn earlier. That would just mean I'd have to wait an extra turn, manual a little bit longer to make sure that I use the Unkillable at the appropriate point later on in the fight. And then that's pretty much all we're doing. We're just putting up the debuffs, trying to extend as best we can. Vizier failed apparently, and that's it. We need an A1 here with Demytha. We need to wait one more turn to use her Unkillable, and then we'll be in pretty good shape. So at this point, we can click auto. Obviously, I want to set things up with Vizier here, so I'm not going to do that right now. But we could click auto if we were so inclined to do so. And there we go. Maneater takes that double turn right there. And now we're going to block the debuffs, or block the damage, I should say. And we are Unkillable. We're in the tune. Now, obviously, against Spirit, Maneater would have had his Unkillable ability last attack. That would be where we want to delay. Or I guess in this next attack, really, is where it would come up. But, you know, just acknowledging that, understanding that is going to be important. But everything else is going the same. We get that speed up right here. Maneater takes a double turn. That's his first attack. We extend the buffs right there. And now Maneater takes a second attack. This is where he placed the Unkillable, the block debuff, and now we are fully in sync here. So at this point, I'm just trying to extend everything with a Vizier so I can click auto as soon as possible, get poisons up there. And yeah, now we have everything up. Assuming Vizier can extend everything next turn, I think we should be in pretty good shape without any worries. And we can just click auto and let it run. So Vizier is, of course, being a bit of a jerk, so I'm gonna have to manual just a little bit longer because we're about to drop that weaken debuff right there. So I'm gonna let this kind of run through. You can see we are still Unkillable, which is just fantastic. We're gonna try and get that weaken up now. There we go. Click auto again. Okay, now we get the speed up. There you go, Maneater does his thing. We get the extension of the speed buff. Now the reason why we can go so slow is we have that increased speed buff, obviously, and then Demytha is extending it. So we're gonna have increased speed on our champions for the entire time. We have Maneater going at his fast speed because that's gonna allow him to take 5 turns for every 3 the clan boss takes. So he gets a full cycle. He gets his cooldown, goes all the way through, and every cycle the clan boss attacks. That allows us to put his Unkillable ability, the block debuffs at the appropriate time, right before the debuffs would come in or the stun would come in, and it works swimmingly at that point. And so that's basically how this works. You know, in order to get Maneater to take so many extra turns, we also have to have everybody else really slow. That, you know, he's basically extending the turn meter of the clan boss, and it allows him basically to take his extra turns in there. So it's a pretty ingenious little comp. ShortOnSkills created this and sent it to me, which I'm super thankful for. So definitely want to give him a big shout out on that. But yeah, it's a very smart team, works really simply, and you can see we're doing really good damage. Obviously, this is a stack team, so I would not expect this kind of damage from everybody, but you're able to bring in 2 DPS champions. You're able to run this on Nightmare and Ultra Nightmare. You do have to make a speed change on High Khatun, so there is a gear change in order to make that work. Not my favorite thing, but that's just kind of the way it is when you talk about these really slow budget style teams. But yeah, it works really nice. We're affinity friendly. We have 2 solid DPS champions that we're able to bring in, you know, it's a pretty nice squad, I would say. So let me get myself off screen. You guys can watch, and then we'll come back at the end and talk about it after. 50 million damage. Nothing wrong with 50 million damage on a pretty slow team. So you can see there's a lot of potential to this type of a squad. Now, not everybody's going to be able to put up that kind of damage, right? I mean, obviously, I have my Dracos stacked out. So is my Vizier. They're the ones doing pretty much all the damage in here. But you know, it shows definitely some potential there. You know, Maneater's taking 5 attacks every cycle too, so he's getting a lot of attacks in there. He put it up what 6.5 million or so. I mean, it's not bad numbers at all. So there's definitely some potential. I think you can definitely do quality damage even without a Draco Morph, even with just poisons. I think you could do a pretty good job. You don't necessarily need a Vizier or somebody like that in there. You could probably get 2 key damage with all epic champions, I think, on this type of a team. But it's another option out there, and that's really why I wanted to show that as, you know, something else that you guys can build with this champion. You know, we all have different champions on our accounts, and we have to make do with what we have. If you have Demytha, if you have Maneater, this could be a really good option for you, especially if you're an earlier account and you can't make those crazy speeds for a lot of the other comps that are there. So that's the High Myth, man. I mean, it's an interesting build. Definitely something I think that's worth checking out, you know, and, you know, might be worth it for some of you out there trying to build this champion. So hopefully this is helpful for you guys. And yeah, if you liked it, well, good. Watch the next video I put out. Thanks for stopping by, guys. Always a pleasure. Until next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.